This podcast is brought to you by the Senior Techie, a source of information for seniors and others about technology.
It is wonderful to be here today. We are tackling a subject that I think creates a lot of silent stress for people, but we rarely actually have the vocabulary to talk about it.
That is so true. And before we dive into the data, and we have a lot of fascinating data from the Senior Techie today, I want to set the stage. I want to see if this scenario rings a bell for you or for anyone listening.
Go for it. Paint the picture for us.
Okay, so picture this. You are standing in your kitchen. It is a Tuesday morning. You pick up your smartphone with one very specific, innocent intention.
Right.
You just want to check the weather forecast because you were thinking about going for a walk later, a 10-second task.
In theory, yeah.
Right.
It should be instant.
But as soon as that screen lights up, you see a little red dot on your text messaging icon. It is a message from your niece.
Okay.
So naturally, you tap it to reply. And while you were in there, you remember you wanted to send her a photo from the family reunion last year. So you switch over to your photo gallery.
And this is usually where the trouble starts.
You start scrolling to find that photo. You can't find it immediately, but you do stumble across a screenshot of a recipe for lasagna that you saved like 6 months ago.
Oh, I do that all the time.
Right. And you think, oh, I should make that for dinner. You open your web browser to check the ingredients. Then suddenly a news notification slides down from the top of the screen, something urgent about interest rates. You click that.
And down the rabbit hole you go.
20 minutes later, you are reading an editorial about the global economy. Your coffee is sitting on the counter stone cold. And here is the kicker. You realize you never actually found out if it is going to rain.
You completely forgot the weather.
Completely forgot it.
That is the universal modern experience right there. It happens to the best of us. But what really stood out to me in the material from the Senior Techie is the emotional aftermath of that loop.
Yes, how we feel afterward.
Right. When that happens, most people, and the data suggests this is particularly acute for seniors, they do not blame the phone. They blame themselves.
They really do. I hear it all the time. People say, oh, I am losing my memory, or I am just getting slow.
Or the classic, I'm just bad with technology.
Yes.
They internalize it as a cognitive failure. They think it is a sign of aging. But the core thesis we are unpacking on the Senior Techie podcast today is that this distraction isn't a personal flaw. It is a system working precisely as it was designed.
That is such a relief to hear, honestly.
We're going to explore why digital life feels so heavy, the neuroscience behind that scattered feeling, and most importantly, how to fix it without needing a degree in computer science.
I love that. We're going to stop blaming ourselves and start understanding the machine. So let us look at the scale of this first, because I think it is easy to dismiss this as just a minor nuisance, but the Senior Techie presents some numbers that show this is a major societal shift.
It is a massive shift. We are looking at adoption rates that are frankly unprecedented. If you go back to just 2016, smartphone ownership for adults over age 50 was sitting around 55%.
A little over half. Okay.
Fast forward to 2025, that number hit 90%.
Wow.
Yeah.
So in less than a decade, we went from this is a nice gadget to have to you essentially cannot function in society without one.
That is the reality. The device is morphed. It used to be a phone. Now it is the central command center for your entire existence. You use it to book a cardiologist appointment. You use it to see your grandchildren's faces on a video call. You use it to find a parking spot downtown.
Or order a prescription. It is indispensable. I would be completely lost without my Maps app, honestly.
Totally indispensable. But here is the tension, and the Senior Techie points out something really crucial here. A device can be miraculously useful and simultaneously psychologically overwhelming.
Those two things can coexist.
They are not mutually exclusive.
I think that is where the clutter conversation comes in. Because the hardware isn't the issue. My phone, physically, is a sleek piece of glass and metal. It doesn't look messy.
Physically, it is pristine.
Yeah.
But digitally, for most people, it is a hoard. The term we should use here is digital sediment.
Digital sediment. I really like that image. Layers of dirt building up over time.
Think about how we use these things. You download an app because a parking garage requires you to pay.
Yeah.
You use it once. Do you delete it when you drive away?
Never. I just close it and forget it exists.
Or you download a menu for a restaurant because they do not have paper ones anymore. Or a flashlight app. Over 5, 6, 7 years, these layers of sediment build up. You end up with pages and pages of icons you do not even recognize.
And then there are the photos. Oh my goodness, the photos.
The photo libraries are often the digital equivalent of a junk drawer that is spilled over into the entire house.
Yeah.
We are seeing libraries with 4,000, 5,000 images.
And let us be honest, how many of those are high-quality, frame-worthy memories?
Maybe 10%. The rest are duplicates, blurry shots of the floor because you held the phone wrong, accidental screenshots, or that picture of a parking spot number you took 3 years ago at the mall.
And then the inbox. Hundreds of unread newsletters.
It creates noise. And this brings us to the most important part of this discussion. Why does this clutter make us tired?
Because physically, it weighs nothing.
Right. A phone with 10,000 unread emails weighs the exact same amount in your hand as a phone with 0.
But it feels heavier. It feels like a burden.
That is where the neuroscience comes in. The senior techie breaks this down into a concept called decision fatigue.
Walk us through that. What is happening in the brain when I look at a cluttered screen?
Your brain is an efficiency machine. It is constantly scanning your environment for tasks. When you unlock your phone and you see a screen full of red notification badges, you know those little red dots with numbers in them?
The anxiety dot.
The anxiety dot, spot on. Your brain registers every single one of those at a tiny demand.
Even if I do not click on them.
That is the critical insight. Even if you consciously choose to ignore the red dot on your email app, your subconscious has to perform a micro-operation. It goes, notice dot, assess urgency, decide to ignore.
Wow.
It takes a fraction of a second, but it burns glucose. It burns energy.
So it is like, imagine sitting in a room and there are 100 people standing around you. They aren't screaming, but they are all gently tapping you on the shoulder and whispering, hey.
That is a perfect analogy. It is a low-level, persistent cognitive load. And when you overload the brain with thousands of these micro-choices, delete or keep, reply or ignore, read or scroll, you deplete your mental energy much faster than you realize.
And when the battery runs dry, what happens?
We shut down. It is a defense mechanism called avoidance. You look at that email icon that says 847 unread, and your brain literally says, I cannot afford the energy to process that right now. So you close the app.
And the pile just grows.
And the stress grows with it. Because deep down, you know the pile is there. It creates this background hum of anxiety.
The stats on this were higher than I expected. The research mentions that 62% of people report genuine stress specifically related to digital clutter.
It is a very specific type of anxiety. It is the feeling of being disorganized, of being behind. And for the senior demographic, this is tragic because it creates a barrier to entry.
There was that statistic that really stood out to me. Nearly 40% of older adults say they would use technology more if it were just easier to manage and understand.
Think about the implications of that. You have this incredible tool that can connect you to the world, keep you safe, and entertain you. And 40% of the target audience is stepping back from it or limiting how they use it. Not because they aren't smart enough, but because the interface is shouting at them.
It completely validates the idea that this is an overload problem, not a user stupidity problem.
If you walked into a public library and all the books were thrown in a pile on the floor and you couldn't find the novel you wanted, you wouldn't say, I am bad at reading. You would say, this library is a disaster.
But with phones, we say, I am bad at technology.
We really need to flip that script. The senior techie emphasizes this heavily. The mess is the problem, not you. And we also have to acknowledge that the mess is partly intentional.
Right, the attention economy. We have to talk about that.
These apps are not designed for your peace of mind. They are designed for time on device, the infinite scroll, the autoplay videos, the bright red colors. These are features engineered by behavioral psychologists to keep you looking.
So if you feel like you are fighting a losing battle against your phone, it is because you are in the ring with a heavyweight champion of distraction.
You are fighting an algorithm that knows exactly what buttons to push. But, and here's the hopeful turn, once you realize the game is rigged, you can stop blaming yourself and start changing the rules.
So let us talk solutions. Because the phrase digital decluttering usually makes people panic. They think they have to delete everything and go live in a cabin with a flip phone.
Or become a minimalist who only has 3 apps on a gray screen. That is not realistic, and frankly, it is not fun. The senior techie proposes a much more balanced approach.
They use the closet analogy. I thought this was really helpful for visualization.
It is the best way to understand it. Think about your clothes closet. You have clothes you love, clothes you wear for special occasions, and clothes you haven't touched in 10 years.
Right, and the goal isn't to burn the closet down.
No. The goal is to organize it so that when you need your winter coat, you can find it instantly. You want to open the door and feel a sense of calm, not a sense of dread that an avalanche of shoeboxes is going to fall on you.
So we are trying to organize the phone so we can find the winter coat, which might be the map app or the grandchild's photo, without digging through the old shoes.
Spot on. and the payoff is immediate. When you clear the digital clutter, that background anxiety fades. But more importantly, you regain agency.
Define that for us in this context. What does agency look like on a smartphone?
It means you are driving the bus. Right now, most people are passengers. The phone beeps, you look. The app buzzes, you click. Agency means you decide when to look. You decide what stays on your home screen. You are the master of the tool, not the servant.
That is a powerful shift. But how do we get there? Because looking at 5,000 photos and 1,000 emails feels insurmountable.
It is insurmountable if you try to do it in one afternoon.
Mm.
You will hit decision fatigue in 20 minutes and quit. So the senior techie outlines a 7-week roadmap.
7 weeks. That sounds long, but I assume that is the point.
It is slow by design. It is about small, digestible sessions, one topic per week.
Let us give the listener a taste of what this roadmap looks like. What are the major stops on the journey?
Week 2 is usually the biggest hurdle, the inbox.
The beast.
But the strategy isn't to read every email. It is about unsubscribing. It is about turning off the faucet before you try to mop up the floor.
That makes total sense. Stop the incoming junk first. What about photos? That seems the most emotional.
That is usually week 3.
Yeah.
And you're right, it is highly emotional. People are terrified to delete photos because they think they're deleting memories.
They think, what if I want to see that blurry picture of my lunch from 2019 again?
Precisely. So the process focuses on backing things up first. Once you know your memories are safe in the cloud or on a hard drive, it becomes much easier to delete the duplicates and the screenshots from the phone itself.
And then there is security. Week 5 focuses on passwords.
This is huge for seniors. The anxiety of forgetting the password is a major barrier. So learning to use a password manager, where you only have to remember one master password, is a game changer. It is about safety, yes, but it is really about convenience.
And finally, habits, because you do not want to do a big clean and then have it look like a disaster again in 6 months.
It is the laundry principle. You don't wait until you have 0 clean clothes to do laundry. You do a little bit every week. We need to build digital laundry habits. Maybe every Sunday you delete the screenshots from the week. Simple maintenance.
I like that. It makes it feel like a household chore rather than a monumental project.
That is the secret to success. Consistency over intensity.
So for the listener who is nodding along right now thinking, okay, I need to do this, but I do not know where to start, the senior techie has a challenge. One small thing to do right now.
I love this challenge because it is purely about awareness. You do not have to fix anything yet.
Okay, here's the assignment. If you are listening and it is safe to do so, obviously do not do this if you're driving. Pick up your phone, unlock it, and simply count the apps.
Go through every folder, swipe through every page, count every single icon. Do not delete them, just get the number.
Why is this simple act so important?
Because the number is always shocking. The average smartphone has between 40 and 80 apps installed. Some people have well over 100.
80 apps? That seems like a lot.
But here is the kicker. Research shows the average person regularly uses fewer than a dozen.
So if I have 80 apps and I use 12, that means I am carrying around 68 pieces of digital junk.
That is the gap. That gap between installed and useful is where the stress lives.
Right.
Those 68 unused apps are taking up storage. They are likely sending you notifications you do not need, and they are visual clutter that your brain has to process every time you swipe past them.
Seeing that number, realizing I have 100 apps and I only use 10, that has to be a light bulb moment.
It changes your perspective. You stop seeing your precious technology and start seeing a cluttered garage. And once you see it as clutter, it becomes much less scary to throw it out.
You aren't losing functionality, you are just clearing the brush so you can see the path.
And that brings us back to the ultimate goal. The senior techie says we aren't organizing for the sake of being tidy. We aren't trying to win a Best Organized Phone award. We are doing this to reclaim attention.
It goes back to that Tuesday morning weather search. You want to find the forecast, decide if you need a jacket, and get on with your walk. You do not want the 20-minute detour.
Technology is a tool. It is a hammer. You do not leave the hammer on the kitchen table and let it interrupt your breakfast. You put it in the toolbox, you take it out when you need to hit a nail.
That is such a clarifying image. We have let the tools sprawl out all over our lives, and we wonder why we feel crowded.
By decluttering, we're just putting the hammer back in the drawer.
So try the counting challenge. Just see what you are working with. And remember, that feeling of overwhelm, it is not you. It is the design, and you have the power to change it.
I actually want to leave the listener with one final thought on that. What if we viewed our phones not as these massive digital worlds we are forced to inhabit, but simply as a household appliance, like a toaster? You do not hang out with your toaster 24/7. You make toast and you walk away.
That is a brilliant way to look at it.
Yeah.
Let the phone serve you, make your toast, and walk away.
Exactly. Take control back.
This has been such a helpful conversation. I'm actually going to check my own phone as soon as we finish recording. I have a feeling I am well over 80 apps.
I suspect I might be guilty of that too. It happens to the best of us.
Well, thank you so much for breaking this down for us.
My pleasure.
This podcast was brought to you by The Senior Techie. It's available on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Spotify. If you'd like to keep up with their newsletters, you can subscribe for free by going to subscribe.theseniortechie.com.